Welcome to Fish Wrap TV, Episode 10. It's Friday, March 26, 2021. I'm your host, Janie Hansen, and we're here live in downtown Blue Earth with Q Lair bringing the weekly market update. Today we'll discuss soybeans and canola, get an update on corn, wheat coming out of dormancy, more shockwaves from the bond vigilantes, and finally the meme generator of the week, the ship stuck in the Suez Canal. This week's market update is brought to you by Croptimize. Croptimize combining real-time analytics, deep market expertise, and AI to take the emotions out of grain marketing and help farmers make decisions like a pro. Check them out on the web or in the Apple App Store. Thank you, Croptimize. All right, Q, seems like those vegetable oils have been really cooking this week. What's happening in soybeans and canola?
Well, we had a big week in canola especially, but of course they dragged beans with them. As you know, we've talked about this over the last 3 years, is that when you're crushing beans for oil, it's extremely dangerous because it's, there's only 11 pounds of oil in a 60-pound bushel of soybeans. And, you continue to crush oil out of the beans, but you get 40 plus pounds of meal every time you do that. So what's happened is that we've drugged this thing up. Canola went absolutely ballistic this week. And new all-time highs. 3-4 weeks ago, we were talking about canola at 600, went through 800.
Whoa.
And this week. And but today, the market broke off. They ran some longs in. Canola closed limit down, drug beans with it. But the real problem with this is that, like I said, when you crush your oil, you're always susceptible. When this thing starts to break. As far as, we talk about week after week heading into the South American harvest. The whisper numbers are starting to come out of what's Brazil's going to be. 134 looks like the floor. We're hearing whispers of 137.
Okay. If
they print a 140, it is absolutely over in the bean market. And then they will break this cycle with canola. Mm-hmm. But until then, canola is driving the bus, as we say in the oil market. And not crude oil, but vegetable oil, back to your cooking situation. So the other thing about beans is that, we've been talking about this where, the top of our frame, which was 1203.5, held on the way up and then came back, but then it blew through. But yeah, what we're seeing now is it looks like a floor, but we're back down right at it now. Okay. And if it breaks 03 and it breaks 12, it is curtains, for the near term in soybeans. And the other thing is that I checked the FOBs today, and the Argentinian FOB is trading at 13.98, right on board, mm-hmm. ready for shipment. Okay. The boards, our boards are over $14, and then the basis at the Gulf is like 76 to 80 over. So we're still talking about 80, 90 over. U.S. Gulf FOB to Argentinian, Buenos Aires. So what that mm-hmm. means is that, the pressures are building on the longs to have to defend this position. And we heard the absolute stunning news that they're thinking about bringing cargoes up from South America to New Orleans.
Really?
And dumping them in the United States. And it's happened before, especially in corn. Before, and of course wheat. We've actually had wheat delivered into North Carolina, into the turkey farms mm-hmm. from France. Because it costs more to freight it from Chicago down to the turkey farms in North Carolina than ocean freight it over and play the basis. So, this is a very, very dangerous game people are playing with the bean market right now, especially if canola cracks. I mean, it is going to be something to behold. Okay. So
watching that $12.
$12 is it. I mean, mm-hmm. if it doesn't hold in November beans, it's over. Okay. And of course, what we're going to see is that these FOB to FOBs, as we call them, and I guess I should explain a little bit. FOB is freight on board. What that means is that is freight on board is when it's ready to actually ship. We got what we call SIF, which is cost, insurance, and freight, which is you get it down to New Orleans, but you have to elevate it into the bins and then out into the giant ships. Okay. And so SIF is like where you got a barge, then you elevate it, and then you FOB it, as we call it. So then ship and it's ready to head for China or Rotterdam. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be talking a lot more about SIFs and FOBs here coming up, especially with harvest and wheat, but especially talking about FOB, Buenos Aires and FOB, some of the ports in Brazil. Okay. And It's really, that's the big game that's coming here. I would be shocked if we don't get a couple of cargoes.
Up here from South America?
Well, I keep talking about how the commercials are just committed to this short position. They're absolutely unafraid. They're absolutely unmoving. And they could be playing this game already. They could have the thing locked in and just ready for the right time to just drop the bomb on them in the markets. So at any rate, it's been a hell of a market this year. We've gone from 840 to the 14s and change for the nearby. So, anybody who, thought you buy a $6 rally in beans thinking it's going to go another $6, you better have your head examined.
Yeah. So how about corn? Is it affecting anything there?
Corn is holding up a little bit better because we just don't have the physics working against it like you do in soybeans with the fobs. But, it's holding up a bit better, but the spreads are beginning to break.
Okay.
And it's starting to smell like it's rolling over too. So, remember I told you the other day that maybe 2 times ago that the people were thinking about buying, July no or July D's corn spread at 75. It's under 70 now.
Okay.
So they're taking gas. It's not a debacle, but yet, if this thing were going to be good, it would be working right now. But the corn pit still owes me $250,000 for my trading days. So I'm not going to be sitting there telling you what to do in the corn pit, but unless it's hedging.
So, but looking at that with corn coming off the 480s and down more in 470s, 460s, keeping an eye on that 455 number we've been talking about for
absolutely. You have
production.
You have to if you're out here in the Midwest, especially the West Corn Belt. That 455, you just cannot let that go. You got to get some of that out there. And get some costs covered.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, and the spreads are starting to roll, and the charts. I've showed you the charts. The charts are starting to look toppy. So, and this is not, we're heading into wheat harvest, and what happens is wheat can go into the feed channels, and especially if the first slug of wheat comes out and it's real crappy, it's going to go right into the feedlots.
Okay,
especially
so that's
in Western
pull
Kansas.
Down on the corn and beans a little bit more too.
And we've been talking about the weather out in the high plains, especially Texas is dry and got a bit of winter kill, and they could just take that right out of the field and dump it in the feedlots and not have to pay corn prices. So it's going to be really interesting, real fast here. And of course like we were talking with one of our partners who lives in Dallas. It's raining there, and it's rainy season, and we just coming out of dormancy. It's getting rain. It is curtains if you get rain at this stage of the game on wheat. And what that means is that it's coming out of dormancy. It's getting wet. Wheat is a weed, as we call it, and it's a desert plant, and it only needs like 6-9 inches of rain. And the thing is that it's had a bit, but now they got a couple inches out in West Texas, and stuff just looks like a lawn.
Getting that big drink of water at the right time.
Exactly, and this is exactly the right time when it comes out of dormancy to get wet, and we're starting to see wheat get a little toppy, a little heavy. Spreads are starting to get a little negative, and they're the canary in the coal mines. So got to be real careful owning these things right now. And something may happen, you never know, but we call that praying outside of church in Chicago, and or living on hopium, because you've had a $1.50 rally in wheat, big one in corn, and of course a monster rally in beans. And if you really let this go, you're going to be looking at the fly specks on the ceiling for the rest of the crop year.
Yeah. So hold the hopium.
Yes.
So, and on the global stage, Turkey's lira, is this part of the reverberations from the bond blowout continuing to echo around the world?
It was like last weekend, Turkey's lira got blown out 17% one day. Ooh. So just imagine everything you own just dropped 17% one day. And the problem is that all of these emerging markets, we talked about, how it was blowing out the emerging markets. And, when you lose 17%, the problem is that all of the debt you accumulated, especially with the IMF, is dollar denominated. So now you're having to pay dollar debt with lira, and you've lost 17% of everything you're trying to do. And this is where it's a huge danger to the emerging markets. And if we've seen this from Indonesia in the late 90s. Just pick a country. Argentina 4 or 5 times, and of course Argentina has told the IMF they can't pay again. So this is like either the 4th or 5th time in my career that Argentina's gone in the tank with their debt. So
Yeah, well, Argentina and the soybean harvest and stuff, what does that mean for those markets?
one thing is that the beauty is that they trade beans in dollars. So this is a way for them to get hard currency, is to get those beans out the port.
Okay.
So we should see movement in the bean market, so that because they're going to sell it faster than they normally would because they need the dollars. Mm-hmm. So it's getting real interesting. And like I said, when I was talking about the bonds three or 4 weeks ago, it's just like, man, when these vigilantes do that and they drop the bomb on this market, you have no idea the earthquake is coming, and it just like keeps going and going. Waves keep coming.
So yeah, any other impacts of this?
Well, like I said, Argentina's getting ready to default again. They got huge problems. Brazil's got political problems and so forth. So, we're seeing that all over the place. But it's really about dollar-denominated debt in these emerging markets is really getting crushed.
Yeah. So, and then other things, fertilizer cost has doubled.
Yes, and we can talk about that from your farm standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got ours applied in the fall, which is nice. So we're not dealing with that this spring because having those input costs hanging out there and subject to this volatility.
We just may have to put a crop-optimized frame around fertilizer.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice.
And invert the model, and then we'll tell you when to buy it.
Excellent.
Same with propane. Mm-hmm. But it's like these are the things that make the big difference. This is the difference between driving a Ferrari and driving a Chevy.
Yeah.
So.
Or little Hot Wheels.
Yes. Indeed. But natural gas is broken down, and that is used to make ammonia, which is used to make ammonium nitrate. All the fertilizers. UAN and so forth, and urea. So as these energy prices go up, you got to worry about your fertilizer at the back end, because it is a huge production behind this thing.
Well, and then they've got a whole cargo of it sitting there with that little wrong turn on the Suez.
Oh, I tell you, that is the funny. I shouldn't laugh so hard, but a guy from Reuters said that the wheat traders were the sickest people they ever met because they laughed at anything, and I think it's hilarious.
I can back that up.
I really do think it's hilarious that they got this thing sideways and stuck in there.
Oh yeah, that is a bad day for everybody else sitting back there.
And the thing is, it weighs so much that as they start digging, it's just like digging it. You're just going down in it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they're going to get. They were talking about, could they nuke it?
Or I think that would be a bad choice.
Or just take a huge empty tanker, just blast it.
Bumper cars.
Yeah, bumper car it.
Or bumper boats.
But that's how sick Twitter is. I mean, they're sitting there trying to figure out how to get that thing out of there.
Yeah.
But there's 200 to 400 ships behind that have to do something else. Mm-hmm. On that ship was hundreds of thousands of tons of fertilizer going to China out of Belarus and the old Eastern Bloc countries, and now it's stuck. And, I don't know what China's going to do, because they're heading into planting season with their fertilizer setting in the Suez Canal at the moment.
Ouch. So, and then you talked about lumber last week. What's the story there?
Oh, it didn't go parabolic this week, but it did set all-time highs, not contract highs, all-time highs. And lumber put out a $987.50 today in the May. And
what's it normally at?
A couple hundred.
Okay.
Or even 100.
Yeah.
And this is, for, I think it's 1,000 board feet or whatever the hell it is. Mm-hmm. But they were showing some guy who was over at Lowe's, and he had like $500 on lumber that he bought like a year ago. And it looked like the shocks in his truck were going to collapse because he had so much wood on it. And he said today it was like 12 boards. It was hilarious.
Yeah. A little difference.
And he said, well, it's easier on the shocks without the wallet.
So yeah, and anything else for this week, or what can we be paying attention to before next week?
Well, I tell you, they closed canola down the limit, and they do that on a Friday afternoon, and that just puts a fear of God in the longs, because the thing is that, this has been the easiest ride for the longs in beans and canola I've ever seen. I mean, there's only been one pullback, and now they've got to go into the weekend with this thing limit slammers on them. Mm-hmm. And then we'll see what happens. But, there's going to be continued shockwaves from that bond vigilante thing. And if they do a $3 to $5 trillion infrastructure pork barrel deal, you can bet we're going to take it another shockwave is going to come from the vigilantes. So, the dollar has gone from about 90 to 92.5, while everything else has collapsed. So if you think about it, the dollar's up 2.5%, turkey's down 17 in 1 week. So, that just shows you that even though our finances aren't really that hot, everybody else's is pathetic, obviously, by comparison.
Mm-hmm. So, yep, and then keeping that eye on the 12 on beans.
Yes, absolutely. Got to keep your eye on that and the 455, 456 in the D's corn.
Mm-hmm. So, and if you want to learn more about the frames that we reference when talking grain marketing strategy, drop an email to info@croptomize.com, and you can learn more about the Croptomize frames. So, and unlike a ship on the Suez, it's always a fun time in Blue Earth. So join us after the show for a Q&A with Don Lips, founder of Mankato Life, which is the one-stop shop for all the fun stuff going on around the Mankato area. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Welcome to the Fish Wrap postgame show. I'm here with Don Lips and with Q, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we all ended up here in the Earth of Blue.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So, well, Don, you come from a background in publishing, and tell us a little bit more about how we ended up working together at Connect the Gray.
Yeah, well, you mentioned publishing. So I've been at the newspaper, or the company that owns the newspaper in Mankato. I had been for at least 15 years. So I'm kind of tied to Mankato, and I'm also active in the arts community. So I don't know if the people watching know, but Janie was the interim director of Twin Rivers Council for the Arts for a short period of time, where I was active, and we met there, started talking, kind of connected, and had a lot of similar vision. Mm-hmm. Similar vision brings us to today.
Yeah, so part of my goal with getting involved with the arts and helping out with Twin Rivers and the Mankato Makerspace and other organizations that help local artists and creatives is showcasing the talent that's here in the local area. Yeah. And that's where I think I was drawn to what you were doing at Mankato Life, that it's showcasing not only the events, it's more limited and more virtual for those right now, but other local store owners and creative people to really just get to know your neighbors and the cool stuff that's going around.
That's good. So yeah, some of my passion, why we started the website, mankatolife.com, I just really wanted people to understand that the Mankato area, and really we'll talk about it in a second, but that includes all the way down here to Blue Earth, it's got a lot more going on than most people realize. There's a real tendency for people to get out of college and flee. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what I wanted to put a stop to. I wanted people to understand that you don't have to go to the Twin Cities. Nothing wrong with going to the Twin Cities, but there's plenty right here, right in our own area, and even down here all the way to Blue Earth, which we'll be spotlighting shortly soon too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know when I was in college, they talked about the rural brain drain, but I've heard now there's starting to be a little more brain gain. And I think having you two around the table here, I mean, Dina, you showed up back in Blue Earth here, working with me on Croptomize a couple years ago, and we featured Wardrobe from the Blue House on Main, our neighbor across the hallway here in Main Street. Moving back, starting up entrepreneurial things, showcasing some local talent.
Yeah, exactly. And we haven't even talked about it much on Fish Wrap, but what you're doing with the Rural Renaissance Project, one of the sponsors occasionally, I think it's one of the most interesting things you've got going on. Yeah.
So, I think that connection between, what we're talking about in the ag markets and local food, see, there's some emergence in the gardens queue.
Yeah, well, we call it the Kew Gardens.
Yeah.
Not the one in London.
Yeah.
But I got my seedlings going, and going gangbusters this year. So we're going to have quite a crop, especially the San Marzanos are looking fabulous.
Oh, yes.
Have you got them under lights queue, or just by a window?
Just on the window.
Cool.
And up they come. So it's been real good. We got a ton of basil coming, so it's going to be tomato salads this year for everybody.
Pesto time.
That's right.
Excellent.
So come to Blue Earth, leave regular Earth, come to Blue Earth for a tomato salad.
Yeah, maybe we need to rename it Green Earth. Actually, we have a column on our site called Green Earth, and we're trying to play on Blue Earth, but we didn't want to play too closely.
Yeah. I think the tomatoes, looking forward to your new garden coming up, or expanded garden, I guess.
Exactly. And
how big is it?
Well, we're going to take an acre of Janie's land, and we're going to build a permanent garden there. So
on the building site.
Okay.
So, by the shed.
Yep.
On one of the not too far from here. So
I mean, it's going to be, eventually orchards and grapes and, berries and stuff
sweet.
like that. Not
That
to
sounds
mention
great.
veggies and herbs. So it's going to be fantastic.
I suppose you don't have to borrow a tiller or rent one. You just get the chisel plow in there. And
we might want to be a little more precise than that.
Yeah, it's been years since I've been on a tractor, but I can still manage.
Yeah, I try to log enough hours each year to keep my farm girl status. Whether
I
it's
was
driving
wondering about that.
driving the chisel plow or semi or something. But I'm low guy on the totem pole for for the seniority on getting tractor time. We've got our regular crew doing most of that.
When the rest of them are too busy or something like that.
Yeah, it's fun though. Driving those big green machines.
Yeah. We were talking about that earlier before the production. I've spent hundreds of hours chisel plowing and harrowing and all that kind of stuff. So my earliest professional experience was as a pastor in small rural communities. It was all farm people and all farms. And their motto was, God, you keep them humble, we'll keep them poor. So I was always looking for jobs, anything we could do to make a few bucks. So anytime a farmer needed some help, I was right there in the tractor, spent tons and tons of time driving grain back and forth from the combine to the elevator. So.
Oh, yep.
Stuff you're all familiar with, no doubt.
So have you been on a tractor recently? Or
No, it's been many, many, many years. So, yeah.
Might have to get you out there this year.
If you're
road show.
if you're a low man on the totem pole, how do I hope to get in? I don't think they're going to let me in. Who the heck is this guy?
We do allow guests.
Okay. But do they allow you?
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think, great to have you down here. And so what's next for Mankato Life?
Well, one of the projects we're working on is spreading the idea of Mankato Life across southern Minnesota. So eventually I'd like to have something like Mankato Life in every single significant community and maybe some not so significant communities across southern Minnesota. We've got a ways to go before we get there, but the next project is blueearthlife.com.
Right.
In support of what we're doing right here.
Well, I think we've had some really talented people coming through, and to be able to get some more, concerts, art shows, some, pop-up events and food tasting, some of those types of things to encourage that culinary culture and get to sample and learn some more about what's growing. And
I'm all over that. That's exactly what I want to do with that site. And even this, we want to make this into an event. So people start saying, hey, let's go see what this crazy people are doing with fish wrap on our Friday afternoon.
That's good. Well, thanks for being here and for coordinating this production.
It's my pleasure.
Right,
Good.
Thank you. And we'll see you next week.